Welcome back. In the previous step, we implemented the login component with a username and a password and the login. We did not really implement a lot of functionality in there. In this step, let's focus on making this login page a little bit more functional. So I am right now able to enter values in the username and password. And let's say I would want to give a default value to the username. So let's say I would say input name is this value is equal to all small in 28 minutes. So we would use this as the user ID for a major part in this course. It would be all small in 28 minutes. And let's save this. Enough in 28 minutes is the user ID. But one of the things you'd see is as soon as I assign the value, I'm not really able to edit this specific field. And if I do a right click, inspect, it says failed prop type. You provided a value prop to a form field without an on change handler. This will render a read only field. If the field should be mutable, use default value. Let's take a step back and think a little bit more about this. When I change the value of a password in here, what is happening is I'm changing the value of this password HTML element. Where is this value being stored? This value is being stored as part of the HTML form. In HTML, all the form elements typically maintain their own state. So this password element or any other element we add to a form maintains its own state. And it is updated directly based on user's input. As I change something in here, the state of this specific thing gets updated. However, when it comes to React, we would want to hold this state inside this specific component. So for example, we would want to hold the values of username and password as state inside the login component. So there are two possibilities which are present in here. Either the form is the source of truth for the password value, or use the state of the component as the source of truth. What React recommends to do is to combine these two and have a single source of truth. Is it difficult to understand all this theory? Let's get hands-on right now. So what React recommends to do is to have a state inside the login component for these two things. So I have a form, so I'll have the corresponding state in the login component. So we'll say constructor. Until now we were doing this constructor, and over here we call super. The best practice is also to accept props and pass props to the superclass. This would ensure that any properties are passed on to the superclass constructor. Now coming to the state, how do we set up the state? This dot state is equal to, what should be the state? Username colon, I'll have the initial value as in 28 minutes, and password. So what I'm doing is creating an initial state in here. Now how can I tie this state to this form element? The way I can tie the state to the form element is by saying value, not as in 28 minutes, but saying this dot state dot username. This is a JavaScript variable, so we need to put it within curly braces. Now let's see what would happen in 28 minutes. I'm still unable to edit it, that's okay. So what is happening now? Whatever is present in this state is being picked up and shown as the value. So what is the source of truth right now? It's this state. But when the value changes, what do we need to do? We need to update this state. How do we do that? Before we do that, let's actually add the value to the password field as well. So this dot state dot password. What we want to do is when a value of username changes, we want to update this state. How do we do that? On change is equal to this dot handle username change. So I would want to create a method called handle username change. I said it's handler. Actually, I would want it to be handle username change. Let's go ahead and create that handle username change. And one of the things is this handle username change gets something called a event as a input. So if you talk in terms of HTML, any action that you perform in the button, when you do a click on it, you generate a click event. In React terms, actually this is something called a synthetic event. We'll look at what's in it very soon. So I'll say console.log event. The last thing which we need to do is to bind this event. So this dot is equal to this dot bind this. So now the event is bound. Let's see what would happen on the form. Once we add the on change on the username, the error on the username field will disappear, but you would still see the error on the password field. That's fine. We'll fix that a little later. But one of the things you would see is, even though I'm trying to update the value in here, I would see that events are being generated. The synthetic event is being printed in here. However, you would see that the value of the username is not getting updated. Why is it not getting updated? Because that value is coming from the state, and we have not really updated the state of the thing yet. So let's just say event.target.value, console.log event.target.value gives the value which is being changed. So if I try to change right now, you can see whatever value I'm typing in, that value comes up in here. What we would need to do is actually use that and set this state. How do we update the state? This dot set state, and to the set state we need to pass a object containing the new value for username. So username, you'd want to set it to event.target.value. So this can be written in a shorter way by removing all this space in this specific way. So you would see code like this and get confused with the syntax. Actually, this code is very similar to the formatted version that we saw a little earlier. So this dot set username to this. So what we are doing is, whenever username value changes, we are updating this state. Let's see what would happen now. Oops, you can see that we are able to update the username, and now the username field is a controlled field. What is a controlled field? A controlled component at a larger picture is something in which the entire change in the UI is dictated by this state. So whenever some change happens, state is updated. Whenever state is updated, the view is updated back. So this specific thing is called a controlled component. The source of truth is the state inside the React component. Now let's quickly do the same changes on the password field as well. You can pause the video in here and try it as an exercise. Okay, let's go ahead. So on change is equal to this dot handle password change. So I'll say handle username change and handle password change, and let's bind it as well. Let's see. Cool. It's only printing the new element because I'm setting it in username. Actually, I should set it to password. So I need to update the state of password, right? Let's see what would be printed. Yep, cool. Whatever I'm typing in here is now being printed. We have not still yet implemented the login, but one of the things that we did right now is, whenever you update this username or the password, it's getting updated into this state. So this complete component that we have, login component, is now a controlled component because everything is now dictated by the state which is inside the login component. Whenever you make a change in here, state is updated. When the state is updated, the change is reflected back in the element. In this step, we made the login component a controlled component. We added state to this specific component, and whenever there's a change in the username, we added an event to handle that. And we are now able to update the state whenever somebody types in something. And we also tied back the value of the element to the state as well. I'll see you in the next step, where we'll be talking about a lot more things. Until then, bye-bye.